by public pressure. Now, the consequence of this was the extraordinary way in which those competing pools of humanitarian concern and non-intervention treaty came to be reconciled. That's to say, if reconciled is the right word, because what in fact resulted was a conflicting, incoherent set of policies. On the one hand, the government agreed to allow 4,000 children to come to Britain. But then, when they did arrive, it insisted that not a penny of public money would be used and made available to house them, to feed them, to support them. That was the condition that the Basque Children's Committee had to accept. It was forced upon them. That they, and they alone, would be responsible for every aspect of the children's maintenance and for meeting the cost of it. Even the tents that were used just up the road in Eastleigh when the children first arrived, even those tents had to be hired, not loaned, not borrowed, they had to be hired from the War Department. Such was the insistence that not a penny of public money would be spent on the children. There was no other government that accepted children anywhere else in Europe that imposed those kinds of conditions upon them. But then, on the other hand, it was at the instigation of Foreign Secretary Anthony Eden, and he, remember, was one of the principal architects of the policies of the Treaty of Non-Intervention. It was on Anthony Eden's instigation that the Royal Navy should provide escorts to any ship carrying refugees from any of the northern ports to any country, regardless of where they were going, be it Britain, be it France, be it Russia. That was Anthony Eden's instigation, and he had to ignore the protests from General Franco, and he had to ignore similar protests and objections from within the government itself, in particular from the Admiralty. He forced them to do it. There is one estimate which suggests that throughout the spring and summer of 1937, a total of 100,000 refugees escaped from the northern ports, of which 89,000 were escorted by British naval warships. Now, were it not for that policy, it's doubtful that very many of those 100,000 would have escaped. It's a certain fact that Havana would not have got through. It's a certain fact that but for that policy, the 4,000 children would not have come to Britain, we wouldn't be here today. So, you see what I mean about the incoherence of the policies. But the children did come. The Royal Naval Escort, they did come. And in due course, they were dispersed to some 70 locations, 70 colonies, the length and breadth of Britain. The Crusader Rescue, the Catholic organization, took 1,200. The Salvation Army took 400, and the rest went into so-called colonies, which were set up and run by local ad hoc committees. It was those amateur committees who looked after the children and raised the funds to do so. They did that by public meetings, by door-to-door collections, by flag days, by persuading individuals and organizations to support them and to perhaps sponsor a child. And they continued to do so when weeks turned into months, and eventually months turned into years. The Basque Children's Committee advised the local committees to try and ensure the widest possible base of support. And they cited the case of a colony in North London, the Barnet colony in North London, where the committee had engaged the support of 40 different organizations, each of the major political parties, local churches, and so on. Now, naturally, the first place in Britain where those practical gestures of support and solidarity with the children were demonstrated was here, in Southampton, and in Eastleigh, which is where the children first arrived. And if you take the time to read the pages of the Southern Daily Echo, the local newspaper, from those first months in 1937, you get a lovely sense of the detail of that. The meetings in the Guildhall to raise funds, the appeals for volunteers, labourers, plumbers, carpenters, to prepare the reception camp, the requests for blankets, cutlery, clothes, toys, and then the reports of individual people. The baker, who said he would prepare 50 loaves a week for the children. The women at the corporation baths who volunteered to do the camp laundry. The taxi firm that would loan cars. The cinema owner who gave free passes to the children on Saturday mornings. The philanthropist who offered to loan a house to serve as a sanatorium. And so on. It was on the basis of that kind of spontaneous generosity from tens of thousands of ordinary British people, the length and breadth of the land, from all walks of life, which sustained, not just for 3 months, which is what everybody had expected, but over years. It was that upon which the Basque children were destined to survive. As for the committee itself, the Basque Children's Committee, charged by the government with taking full responsibility for the maintenance and ultimate repatriation of the children, it continued to fulfill this duty right up until 1951. It was only in that year that it finally decided that it had fulfilled, it had honoured its duty of care, and finally closed. And I think it could reasonably be said that by the time that the youngest children who have arrived in this country and who were still here had reached the age of majority, had reached the age of 21, then when the Basque Children's Committee wound itself up, I think it could reasonably be said that it had completed its responsibilities, and it had done so honourably. Thank you.